Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is a school I'm sure we've all wanted to attend at some point in our lives, and thinking about going to Hogwarts always brings one major question. What house would you be in, and which is the most powerful? If you break it down, each of the four houses, Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw, all have their own specialties and quirks that make them appealing. But wand to your head, if you had to say the most powerful house out of the four of them, what would you say? Well, today's video is discussing all four houses' strengths and weaknesses to determine which one is the most powerful. Let's get into it right now. Let's start with the big one, Gryffindor. It's the house that's without a doubt focused on the most in the series.
Gryffindor!
Mainly because obviously all our main characters are in it. So what's the deal with Gryffindors? Well, if you had to boil it down to just one word, I think that would be bravery. As Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone states, their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. I would say most Gryffindors have that special something inside of them that would make them stand up and do the right thing, to keep fighting the good fight even if all hope seems lost. And even though they might not be the strongest wizards, those special traits go a long way in making them extra powerful. Obviously, the big example of a great, powerful Gryffindor is Harry Potter. You may have heard of him.
You're a wizard, Harry.
He is the very embodiment of bravery, and that goes a long way. Because let's be honest, it's not like Harry is the best or smartest wizard around, but the reason why he's such an important character is because he's brave enough to stand up against insurmountable odds. He's more than willing to face Voldemort, or a giant basilisk, or a supposed crazed killer that turned out to be a nice dude, or a supposed nice dude that turned out to be a crazed killer. But that type of bravery can also be a little dangerous. When you're that brave or dedicated to doing the right thing, your critical thinking tends to be overshadowed. Take Order of the Phoenix, for instance, where Harry rushed to Sirius's aid because he thought his godfather was in danger. Everyone thought it was a trap, but Harry couldn't risk it and went without a well-thought-out plan. And then, ultimately, that resulted in Sirius's actual death. So be warned when it comes to bravery, and be sure to think things through. The other big example is, of course, Dumbledore, who is the very definition of a powerful wizard. And yes, he is insanely powerful, brave, smart, good taste in candy, and all that jazz. But I really liked how, as the movies progressed, we learned more about Dumbledore's flaws and mistakes. He was human, just like the rest of us, and sometimes his arrogance got the better of him. Other notable Gryffindors that really show how strong the Gryffindor house is obviously Hermione Granger, the MVP of the whole series with her bravery and brains, as well as Neville Longbottom, who proved that even if you are a little nervous or scared at times, it doesn't mean you still won't do what's right when the time calls for it. But enough talk about the popular kids. Let's give another house some focus for once. How about Hufflepuff? I know Hufflepuff tends to be the butt of a lot of Hogwarts jokes because of their supposed passiveness and perceived lackadaisical attitudes. But in reality, this is a house that should not be underestimated by any means. If I had to choose one word to describe the Hufflepuffs, it would be loyal. Just like Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs will fight for what's right and always rise to a challenge. But they just won't do it in as flashy of a way as Gryffindors. Let's say a Gryffindor and a Hufflepuff are fighting an evil wizard. Let's name him Grindelmott or Voldemort or something equally sinister. The Hufflepuff wouldn't hesitate to toss their wand to the Gryffindor for the Gryffindor to land the final blow. Now, in the history books, it would say that Gryffindor was the hero of the story. But at the end of the day, the Gryffindor couldn't have won without the Hufflepuff. Now, maybe this doesn't make them the most powerful house, but they're probably statistically filled with the best overall people. I don't think there's been any dark witch or wizard in history that has come from Hufflepuff. The closest thing we've gotten was Cedric Diggory, who became a Death Eater in an alternate timeline in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child play. And speaking of Cedric Diggory, he's one of the best examples of what Hufflepuffs can do. He had a little bit of all the traits from the four houses. He was loyal in the way he wanted to help Harry with the second task after Harry helped him out with the first task in Goblet of Fire, and he was more than willing to relinquish the Triwizard Cup to Harry when he thought Harry won fair and square. It was only through Harry's insistence that the two touched the cup at the same time, which proves Cedric's loyalty and integrity. And then the other big example of a powerful Hufflepuff is Newt Scamander, the protagonist for the Fantastic Beasts film series. Now, Newt isn't necessarily powerful in terms of raw strength, but at his core, he's a good person and incredibly loyal to Dumbledore, which has made him a valuable asset in the fight against Grindelwald. Dumbledore even tells Newt that he likes him because Newt can't be swayed by the promise of power, nor does Newt seek it. Rather, Newt just will always do what's right. So So yeah, Hufflepuffs deserve way more credit than they usually get. Alright, what other houses do we have? How about Ravenclaw? Those smarty pants are definitely the ones you want to cheat off of if you're ever taking a test. But just how powerful is the Ravenclaw house? Well, they're powerful if you consider a healthy quest for knowledge a powerful trait to have. But even if a Ravenclaw isn't that smart for some reason, those individuals would still have a strong desire to seek out knowledge and always be willing to learn new information. I don't think there's a problem that a Ravenclaw wouldn't be able to solve. Whether it's recalling a specific piece of information they read in an old textbook, or if it's brainstorming creative solutions to the problem, either way, it's not going to be a problem for long. And that outside-the-box thinking is really important to keep in mind. I think it's easy to classify Ravenclaws as a bunch of book-loving nerds. At least, that's what I imagine the Gryffindors call them as they make their way to the Quidditch field. But also remember the most prominent Ravenclaw we've seen in the Harry Potter series, Luna Lovegood. Right away, Luna isn't what you would typically consider as a brainy person. Many people write her off because she's a little odd and isn't afraid to speak out about things many people don't believe in. But when you actually sit down to listen to her speak, you'll find she isn't crazy or out of it or anything like that. She just has an open mind to the world around her, and that allows her to approach problems in a unique way. Luna is an awesome character, and she represents perfectly how much potential Ravenclaw has overall. So let's move on to the final house, Slytherin. Now, I'm not saying all Slytherins are bad, but if there's a dark witch or wizard roaming around, chances are they come from the Slytherin house. And again, I want to emphasize that there are a lot of good Slytherins out there, but it's just that the house of Slytherin itself is the one that will most likely attract the power-hungry students who are willing to turn to the dark side to get what they want in life. So let's break down their two most important traits, which are ambition and cunning. Coupled together, there's really nothing a successful Slytherin can't accomplish. As it's written in the Sorcerer's Stone, quote, "Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends," end quote. So they ultimately possess the same type of tenacity and thirst for new information that Ravenclaws do, but the difference is that ultimately, Slytherins won't care about what's right and wrong in order to get what they want. Like, you know how in Endgame to find the Soul Stone you have to sacrifice someone you love? If a Ravenclaw and a Slytherin were both in that position, Ravenclaws might realize that the price of acquiring the Soul Stone is just too high. While on the other hand, I think a Slytherin would push their loved one off the cliff before the ghost of the Red Skull even finished their sentence explaining what had to be done. And that's what's always going to be Slytherin's biggest strength and their biggest weakness. Their ambition and cunning will always lead them to pretty good positions in life, be it a high-ranking Ministry of Magic roles or just being a powerful witch or wizard. But the problem is that it's never going to be enough. Think about it. Voldemort could have been a really powerful wizard, but because he was so obsessed with immortality, he ended up living far less than he originally could have. Plus, Slytherins tend to think less of those who aren't pureblood, which is the totally wrong way of thinking. They'll constantly underestimate those who aren't pureblood, and that ignorance can really be costly. So while the mixture of cunningness and ambition can be a really dangerous duo, it doesn't have to necessarily mean a wizard is evil. Look at Horace Slughorn. He's not a bad guy really, he's just willing to play favorites with those who will do well in life, so that he can reap the benefits. Is that a smart move? Absolutely. Is it a little morally gray? Most definitely. So in the end, if you take all those factors into account, which house is the most powerful? The way the houses are structured, it's abundantly clear they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Just because Slytherin has such clear ambition and cunning, it makes it easier for them to be the strongest, most powerful house. But they're also so blinded by ambition sometimes that they won't recognize their own downfall until it's right in front of them. So wouldn't that make them the weakest? Yeah, okay, I can confidently say this. Slytherin is the most powerful on a short-term basis, but it doesn't take much for them to lose all their power. I think, actually, in the grand scheme of things, Hufflepuff is the most powerful Hogwarts house. And wait, before you throw me to the centaurs, let me just say that Hufflepuffs are going to be the ones who get along with everyone, they won't draw attention to themselves with their brave deeds like the Gryffindors, and the power they do gain will be done without any sort of backstabbing or underhanded methods, which means their power will last for a long time. Yeah, okay, that's why Hufflepuff is the most powerful. But I imagine we're going to disagree on this. I'll be expecting your howler to be sent to me by Owl any day now. What do you think the most powerful house in Hogwarts is? And what house would you want to be in? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that big like and subscribe button for more awesome Harry Potter content like this. Thanks for watching CBR. See you next time.